There's a story about a man who lived in a village at the base of a mountain. Everyone knew him. He was famous for one thing: nothing rattled him. Earthquakes would shake the houses. He'd keep sweeping his porch. A fire would break out in the market. He'd walk toward it calmly, helping people evacuate as if the world wasn't burning. His daughter would come to him crying over a breakup. He'd nod, listen, speak quietly, and somehow she'd leave feeling better. Not because he solved a problem, but because he seemed so certain that everything would be okay. The village loved him for this. They called him the Unshakable One. People would come from neighboring villages just to sit near him, hoping that his calm would transfer to them like a contagion. His wife loved his stability. His children felt safe because no matter what happened, their father remained constant. He was the rock, the anchor, the one person in a chaotic world who made sense. But here's what nobody knew. One night, his wife woke to find him not in bed. She found him in the back room, hands shaking, tears streaming down his face. He was having a panic attack, and she realized something in that moment. His calmness wasn't peace. It was a cage. And he'd been locked inside it for so long that she'd forgotten there was a prisoner in there at all. That's the truth about people who are always calm. It's not peace. It's something much darker. Most people think calm people have their lives together, that they've figured something out, that they don't get stressed or anxious or afraid like the rest of us. But that's a massive misunderstanding. The people who are always calm aren't calm. They're dissociated. They're frozen. They're functioning, but they're not actually present. They've learned to split themselves in half. One half handles the world competently. The other half is somewhere else entirely. Watch someone who's always calm during a crisis. Yes, they handle it well. But notice their eyes. Notice how they're not really there. They're watching themselves handle it from somewhere far away. It's like they're narrating their own life instead of living it. And that distance, that detachment, is not a superpower. It's a trauma response. Real calm is fluid. Real peace ebbs and flows. It's okay to be upset sometimes. It's okay to feel things intensely. But people who are always calm have learned that emotions are dangerous, that being reactive is bad, that feeling deeply will destroy them. So they learn to feel nothing. Or rather, they learn to observe their feelings from a distance so great that the feelings can't touch them anymore. The tragedy is that these people look like they have it all figured out. They're the ones who seem to have everything under control. They're the leaders, the therapists, the ones everyone turns to, and they're often deeply, intensely lonely. Because nobody actually knows them. People know the calm version, the controlled version, the real person, the one who's terrified, the one who's breaking inside. That person is locked away where nobody can reach. Here's what usually happens in the origin of this pattern. These are often people who grew up in environments where emotions weren't safe, where a parent was unpredictably angry, or a parent was so fragile that the child learned they had to be the stable one, where loud emotions meant danger, where expressing anger or sadness or fear resulted in punishment or abandonment. So the child learned, swallow it, push it down, don't let anyone see it, be the calm one, be the one everyone can rely on. And it works. For a while, it works brilliantly. You become the person everyone wants to be around. You become the one people trust. You become functional and reliable and competent. You get rewarded for it. People praise you for your patience, your maturity, your ability to keep your cool. And the child inside learns that this is the only way to survive, that being calm is the only acceptable way to exist. But the cost is your interiority, your inner world, the ability to feel alive. Over time, always being calm means never being present. You become a ghost. You're going through the motions. You're showing up. You're doing the things. But there is nobody home. And the people closest to you start to notice. Your partner might say, I feel like I don't really know you. Your friends might say, you're so hard to read. And you'll feel confused because you thought you were being open. But you weren't. You were just being calm about everything while keeping the real you locked away. What's interesting is that people who are always calm often have anxiety disorders. Depression. They self-medicate with alcohol or work or exercise or anything that keeps them numb. And they don't even realize it. They think they're just disciplined, just focused, just not the type of person who gets emotional. But what they actually are is someone running from their inner experience at full speed, calm on the outside, chaotic on the inside, and this creates a particular kind of relationship pattern. The calm person often ends up with someone who's emotionally expressive, who's reactive, who feels things loudly and outwardly, and the calm person becomes the stable one, the rational one, the one who gets it together when the other person is being dramatic. But what's really happening is that the expressive person is doing all the emotional labor for both of them. They're living for two people, and the calm person is completely disconnected. They're not actually supporting, they're just observing and managing. The expressive partner eventually gets exhausted because they're feeling everything and getting nothing back. They're pouring emotion into a void, and the calm partner doesn't understand why that's a problem because they've never learned that emotions are supposed to be reciprocal, that real intimacy requires both people to be vulnerable, that you can't build genuine connection with someone who's not actually there. Here's the psychology that's really important to understand. People who are always calm have often developed something called emotional numbing or dissociation. It's a survival mechanism. When the world is too overwhelming, when emotions are too intense, the brain literally shuts down the feeling centers to protect you from pain. And it works. For a little while, you don't hurt anymore. You don't feel anxious anymore. You don't feel anything. But the problem is that emotions aren't on a dimmer switch. You can't numb just the bad ones. When you numb fear, you also numb joy. When you suppress anger, you also suppress passion. When you disconnect from sadness, you disconnect from love. So the person who is always calm is actually experiencing life in muted colors. Everything is gray. Nothing feels as real as it should, and they're often not even aware of it anymore because they've been numb for so long that numb feels normal. This also creates a particular relationship with other people's emotions. People who are always calm tend to struggle with empathy in a specific way, not because they're cold, but because they can't access their own emotions. They can't really meet someone else's emotions, so they become problem solvers. They try to fix things. They try to rationalize away the person's feelings. But have you thought about it this way? Here's what you should do. They're trying to solve the problem so they don't have to sit with the feeling, because any feeling requires access to their own emotional reservoir, and that reservoir is dry. The person who is always calm often has a deep fear of vulnerability. They've learned that being vulnerable is being out of control, and being out of control is dangerous. So they maintain this perfect facade of calm. But maintaining a perfect facade is exhausting. It requires constant monitoring, constant adjustment, constant performance, and there's no rest from it. Even in sleep, their nervous system is activated. They're in a perpetual state of low-level hypervigilance. What's really sad is how this manifests in their relationships with their children or loved ones. They think they're providing stability, but what they're actually providing is emotional abandonment. Because they're not actually present, they're not actually connected. They're just going through the motions of being a good parent or good partner while completely dissociated from the experience. And the people who love them feel this. On some level, they know that the calm person isn't really there, that they're being cared for by someone who's absent. And so the cycle continues. The calm person's child learns that emotions aren't safe, that being vulnerable is weakness, that the way to be loved is to be competent and controlled, and they grow up to be a calm person too, passing the dissociation down like a family heirloom. The thing about people who are always calm is that they're often depressed. Deeply, profoundly depressed. But they don't recognize it as depression, because depression doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like nothing, like flatness, like you're just going through life without feeling alive. And they'll say, I don't have time to be depressed. I have too much to do. And that's true. They don't give themselves time to feel anything. Because the moment they stop moving, the moment they sit still, the feelings start to crack through. The breaking point often comes when they can't maintain the facade anymore. When something happens that's too big to just be calm about. A major loss, a betrayal, a failure, and suddenly they can't hold it together and they fall apart, hard. And it's shocking to everyone around them because they've never seen this person break before. They didn't know they were capable of breaking. But breaking is actually what needs to happen. Because you can't heal a wound you won't acknowledge. You can't process drama you won't feel. The path forward for someone who is always calm is actually about learning to feel again. It's about slowly, carefully reconnecting to their own emotional experience. It's about grief, because they have to grieve all the moments they missed, all the connections they didn't have, all the life that passed while they were numb. It's about learning that emotions aren't dangerous, that being vulnerable isn't weakness, that the people worth keeping around are the ones who can handle your feelings, who can sit with you when you're not okay, who love the real you, not the calm version. It's about learning that calm isn't the same as peace, that peace actually requires feeling, that you can't be at peace with something you're running from. True peace comes from integrating all of yourself, the scared parts, the angry parts, the grieving parts, not hiding them, not transcending them, but actually feeling them and allowing them to exist. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, if you're someone who is always calm, the first step is awareness. Noticing when you're dissociated, noticing when you're numb, noticing when you're watching your life happen instead of living it. And then slowly, carefully, practicing feeling. It will be uncomfortable. It will feel dangerous, but that discomfort is actually you coming back to life. And if you know someone who is always calm, understand that they're not okay. Their calmness isn't peace, it's a cage. They need someone to reach them, to invite them back, to say it's okay to feel something. Because the calm people are usually the ones suffering the most. They're just suffering silently, invisibly, in a way that no one can see. Understanding these patterns, seeing the truth underneath the surface calm. That's what we're here to do at The Forgotten Self. We're looking at the psychology of the things people do to survive. The mechanisms that protected us once but imprison us now. The ways we've learned to not be ourselves and how that costs us everything. If this resonated, if you're starting to see the patterns, subscribe. Because we're building something here. A space where the real you can exist. Where feelings are safe. Where calm isn't a cage. Until next time, be brave enough to feel something.